What if wealth didn't look like wealth at all? Imagine driving through a normal neighborhood on a quiet afternoon. The houses look similar. The cars are ordinary. Lawns are trimmed, but nothing stands out. Kids are playing outside. Someone is walking their dog. Nothing about the scene suggests financial success or failure. And yet, statistically, 1 out of every 10 households on that street may already be in the top 10% of net worth. That idea feels strange at first. Most people imagine the top 10% as something distant and dramatic: luxury homes, expensive cars, and obvious signs of success. It feels like a category reserved for people who started earlier, earned more, or got lucky somewhere along the way. Because of that assumption, many people never seriously think about what it actually takes to get there. But most of the time, wealth is spread across assets that grew slowly over many years. Time plays a bigger role than dramatic financial decisions. For many households, a large portion of net worth comes from home equity. A house purchased years ago gradually increases in value while the mortgage balance slowly decreases. Nothing exciting happens in any single month, but over decades, the difference becomes significant. Retirement accounts often follow the same pattern. Contributions made consistently over 20 or 30 years begin to compound. Growth feels slow at first, almost invisible. But eventually, those steady contributions turn into meaningful financial stability. Savings and investments add another layer. Not necessarily huge amounts, just consistent ones. There's another reason people misunderstand wealth. They assume that reaching a high net worth must feel dramatically different on a daily basis. They imagine a sudden shift: more freedom, less stress, instant confidence. But in reality, the transition is subtle. Most households that gradually build wealth don't wake up one day feeling rich. The process feels almost boring. The same routines continue. The same grocery stores. The same habits. The difference is happening quietly in the background. And that quiet progress is exactly why it works. Dramatic financial moves often attract attention. But boring consistency builds stability. Automatic transfers. Regular investing. Paying down debt slowly. Reviewing expenses once in a while. None of it feels exciting, but it compounds. If you zoom out 5, 10, or 15 years, the boring path often beats the exciting one. Over time, small actions repeated regularly begin to matter more than occasional big decisions. This is why wealth often doesn't look dramatic from the outside. It grows quietly in the background of normal life. Another detail people often overlook is that wealth statistics usually describe households, not individuals. A household may include two working adults sharing expenses and financial responsibilities. Over time, that shared structure can make progress feel more achievable than it appears when looking at numbers alone. Understanding this changes how the goal feels. It becomes less about reaching a massive number overnight and more about steady movement over time. So how do people actually reach that level of financial stability? Surprisingly, it's rarely about making perfect choices. It's usually about making reasonably good choices consistently, while avoiding the kinds of mistakes that erase progress completely. Small mistakes happen to everyone. Buying something unnecessary, making a bad investment decision, or underestimating a cost is normal. These moments rarely define long-term outcomes. What matters more is avoiding major financial setbacks are the kinds of decisions that force someone to start over. Lifestyle debt is one example. As income grows, spending often grows with it. Bigger car payments, larger homes, and higher monthly obligations can quietly prevent wealth from building at all. Another pattern shows up when you look at long-term wealth builders. They don't optimize every tiny decision. They optimize the big ones. Where they live, how much house they buy, what car they finance, whether they carry high-interest debt, whether they invest consistently. Small daily spending differences matter, but the large structural decisions matter far more. A slightly cheaper phone won't change your life. A house that stretches your budget for 30 years might. Financial progress often depends less on cutting coffee and more on controlling fixed monthly obligations. Once your fixed costs are reasonable, everything else becomes easier. Saving becomes possible. Investing becomes consistent. Stress decreases. Structure determines outcome more than motivation. Borrowing large amounts for investments or business ventures can sometimes erase years of steady progress if things go wrong. Life events can also have financial consequences. Divorce, unexpected medical costs, or long periods without income can quickly change a household's financial position. None of this means avoiding risk entirely. Building wealth always involves some uncertainty. The difference is whether the downside is manageable. Healthy financial risks may slow progress temporarily if they don't work out. Dangerous risks can erase progress completely. Restraint often matters more than brilliance. Because of this, net worth alone doesn't always tell the full story of financial health. A more useful measure is resilience, how stable life feels when something unexpected happens. If a car repair is needed, does it create stress or a crisis? If income drops for a few months, does life continue normally, or does everything feel fragile? Financial flexibility changes how daily life feels. It creates room to breathe. It allows time to think. It turns emergencies into inconveniences instead of disasters. Sometimes a household with a lower net worth but stable expenses and consistent savings feels more secure than one with a higher number but constant financial pressure. Margin matters. Stability matters. Flexibility matters. Another shift happens slowly during the wealth-building process. In the beginning, progress comes mostly from work. More hours, promotions, and income increases drive improvement. But over time, accumulated assets begin to contribute. Investment growth starts to matter. Retirement accounts grow on their own. Home equity increases without daily attention. The balance changes gradually. Effort still matters, but it's no longer the only source of progress. That shift often changes how financial life feels. Decisions become less urgent. Setbacks feel manageable. The future feels less uncertain. Wealth rarely grows in a straight line. Some years feel slow. Markets drop. Unexpected expenses appear. Motivation fades. It can feel like progress has stalled. But long-term growth is not about smooth lines. It's about overall direction. Think of it like physical health. Missing a few workouts doesn't define you. A bad financial month doesn't define you either. What matters is returning to the system. The people who eventually build significant net worth are not perfect. They are persistent. They return to saving. They return to investing. They return to managing expenses. Again and again. That repetition creates momentum. And momentum, over decades, becomes wealth. This is why many people who are building wealth don't feel wealthy at all. Their financial progress is real, but it's happening quietly. It supports stability rather than visible luxury. Net worth percentiles capture only a moment in time. They don't show the path, the risks, or the direction someone is heading. Building wealth is usually less about dramatic success and more about avoiding dramatic failure while staying consistent for long periods of time. Quiet progress compounds. So if you feel behind, you may not be behind at all. You may simply be earlier in the process than you expected. Keep going. Consistency works more often than luck. And time works more often than either. Subscribe for more videos about money, psychology, and long-term wealth.